Hello, I'm Kerry O'Shea Gorgone, and this is Appfire Presents, the best ITSM show by Appfire. Today, we're going to answer the question, what is incident management in ITSM? Why is it important? And how can I do it right? And to help us answer that question is Nick Nader, a solutions engineer at Isos Technology. He holds Atlassian certifications in Jira Service Management and Agile with Jira, and is a certified SAFe program consultant. So stick around for 10 minutes of ITSM awesome.
Appfire Presents, the best ITSM show by Appfire.
Thanks so much for being here, Nick. So I guess what's incident
Happy to
management?
be here.
What's an incident, actually?
It's a great question. It's a great question. Incident management, it's a facet, it's a part of ITSM. You know, when we talk about IT service management, it's all inclusive for managing interactions with your customers. So service requests, incidents, problems, changes, all those things are kind of under the ITSM umbrella, and incidents is one of those major parts of ITSM that's super important because you got to be able to resolve issues that your clients and end users are having with your services or your systems or your products.
So are these things that are like
super
outside
important.
the day-to-day, things that disrupt your day-to-day operations?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can kind of define an incident as a disruption of services, right? Either a degradation of service or a complete outage of services where you can't get to a website or you can't use a product that's hosted somewhere. So yeah, it's basically loss of service or disruption.
Now I'm guessing you want to have some idea what you're going to do before it happens. You don't just want to make it up as you go,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. Got to have a plan. So you essentially have to have an incident resolution process, right? And your help desk agents should be churched up on that process so that they don't just like scramble with their heads cut off when an incident comes in from their help desk, which is a big part of it, right? Like documenting your process, having your agents churched up on that documentation of the process, and just making it like readily available within the tools, right? So they can reference that process and basically take the right steps to resolve that incident and loop in the teams and the stakeholders and the necessary people that it's going to take to resolve that incident.
So it's not like the first time it's ever happened just because it's the first time they're seeing it as like the individual person.
Very
is seeing
true.
it.
Very true. Yeah, there's a couple different like classifications of incidents, right? Like you have your standard incidents, normal incidents, and then emergency incidents. So your standard ones are kind of just like normal incidents, maybe that haven't occurred before, but aren't emergencies, not totally like total system down or anything like that. Your normal ones are ones that are just like repetitive incidents, like you said, where they just happen over and over again. So you already have like a structured process around them. And then, of course, emergency ones are ones that are, you know, total system outages, total disruption of service that you have to put out very quickly, right? Because that's a fire that is affecting a huge portion of your business.
And if you've got a really sophisticated tech stack, I would think that the stakes are really high because any one of the pieces in that could go out and affect all the rest of them. And now, so that would maybe be an emergency, like, oh no, now we can't do anything like today.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. And when you look at like Jira Service Management, they always have default fields like affected service, right? And that's usually what your end users are opening up an incident against is, hey, this is the service or the product that I'm having an issue with. And that on the back end can actually be tied to all of the other services that it has dependencies with, right? So if I'm having an issue with AWS and we're hosting a bunch of stuff on AWS, all of those other services could be down because we're having an incident with AWS. So yeah, you gotta kind of have to have that dependency map between your services so that when you have incidents that are affecting one and could be affecting several because of that, you know where those fires are, which services are down, and how they relate to each other.
So that's the stick. What's the carrot? Like what happens? What goes better when you have good incident management?
Great question. Great question. So, a proper incident management process is going to be it's going to enable your customers to open incidents very easily, right? So like a help desk portal with the right request form, with the right fields, making it easy for them to like select the product that they're having an issue with, making it very easy for them to like attach error screenshots and things like that. So just like sourcing the incidents from your end users is super helpful. And then, Atlassian also has a product called OpsGenie that integrates with a bunch of monitoring tools. So you can actually source incidents from your systems themselves and get to them before your end users experience that outage or whatever the incident may be. So you can kind of
like nobody's
have all that
complained
monitoring.
yet.
Yes, yeah, exactly. You cut it off before it gets to that customer. Your monitoring systems are basically built for that, right? And what Opsgenie does is it integrates with all those monitoring systems, takes the data payload from all those monitoring systems, and then kind of like parses it and like cleans out the gunk that you don't care about, and then routes the alerts and the data to the proper people. So you could have like a team per product in Opsgenie, and those teams are the ones that are going to get alerts when their monitoring systems for their product, start pinging them, start sending SMS messages. So you can kind of route it and escalate it to those different teams. And they have like on-call schedules and things like that. You can get them in, text form or phone calls if it's an emergency. So there's a lot of different methods of communicating out those alerts and those monitoring alerts coming from your monitoring systems, through that Opsgenie product. So super helpful if you don't want your customers to find it first.
How often do you go in and like refresh settings on whatever kind of app you have, making sure that your instance doesn't die, stuff like that? Like,
Yeah, that's
how
a great
should you
question. Yeah.
check? How often should you
Yeah,
check?
like maintenance of the product that's monitoring the systems. Yeah, for sure. It's something that you should probably have like a dedicated admin for, right? Like Opsgenie typically is going to have an administrator that'll do like kind of routine maintenance, make sure the integrations are working. But the system itself also has like error logs and audit logs, right? So it'll kind of tell you, hey, the connection isn't there anymore. It can have heartbeat monitors. So if I don't get a ping from our system every 5 minutes or 1 minute, then we're going to have an issue and we're going to send off an alert. So it can even alert you about those kind of things.
So do you think then that that's something, so you mentioned having like a full-time person dedicated to updating that stuff. That person's going to need to be informed about team changes too. Or do you recommend tying alerts to like roles as opposed to individual people? Because people do move around.
For sure, they do. Yeah, and the alerts are usually routed to like a team as a whole, right? So we'll have a team for a service or a product, and that team's members could change, right? So your team members could shift between teams. They could be part of multiple teams, but as long as they're kind of built into that team configuration and have, a section or a rotation in the on-call schedule, then they're going to be getting the alerts from whichever teams they're a part of. So yeah, I think that you definitely need a dedicated administrator, but that administrator could be administering multiple products, right? Not to say you need a full-time engineer just for Opsgenie. Definitely don't need a full-time engineer just for Opsgenie. Once you get it set up, the maintenance is relatively lightweight. So it's usually an administrator that's doing several of your systems that's handling the Opsgenie side as well.
So what's like the worst situation you've ever seen and how did you fix it? Like, have you ever seen a big mess and gone, oh my God, if something actually happens, we're dead?
That's a great question. We've had clients that have run into those issues. Luckily, I'm not a full-time incident management developer or operations manager, so I haven't had to put out any fires personally, but our clients put them out all the time, and we've created systems that help them handle those major fires, right? Clients that have, very large websites, clients that like host and run streaming platforms like the one that we're on right now, right? Ones that are like constantly live all the time. They have had major issues where, their services go completely down. Maybe something like Cloudflare or another DNS provider, goes down and 20% of the internet goes down, right? That's a huge issue for their services and systems. But as long as they have that incident resolution process in place, those monitoring tools in place, they're going to be able to hop on that extremely quickly. It's going to wake up managers and stakeholders if they're in a bad time zone or it happens overnight. So people are going to be able to jump on that fire very, very quickly. And the tools kind of facilitate that quick communication and collaboration with things like hosted bridges for specific major incidents, right? So you can kind of like spin up a video conference bridge very easily. You can spin up a chat room and channel dedicated to an incident very easily with like just one click of a button. So the communication is all there and status updates are there during resolution so that stakeholders don't have to constantly be on that video conference, but they can get status updates from the people that are doing the resolution of that incident and resolving it. And then the other piece is tying in the development and the operations teams. It kind of ties through Opsgenie, allowing you to tie in those developers, their source code repositories. So the people that are actually going to make the changes that fix that incident are also tied into this process, right? Even though they don't live in your help desk or live in Opsgenie, they kind of live over in maybe Jira software or their other development tools, and they can tie into this incident management process because the tool kind of facilitates that integration so that they're also aware of it and they can quickly dig into maybe a code commit or a deployment that they pushed recently and see, hey, was this the root cause of our incident? And can we resolve the root cause, right? And that's starting to get into problem management, but incident, problem, and change management are all related, right? The incident happens first. You try to dig into the root cause of what caused the incident, and that's problem management. And then you perform a change to fix that root cause, which is change management, right? So it's all kind of tied together. Incident management is just the beginning of that chain.
I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Appfire has Configuration Manager for Jira, which you can set up to avoid issues. Also, guardrails is now a new feature in Jira that can help you set things up, like set parameters, so that if your instance is going to like die, if you go over a certain limit, like you can have it alert you before that happens. So
Right.
lots to
right.
do. So you really have to just kind of set the stage for success and then maintain, is what it sounds like. It is never too
Exactly,
late.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and there's never too many safety nets, right? Like having guardrails up is fantastic because it's just another safety net for your systems that are business critical, basically.
if you need more information about this topic, and really who doesn't, go to blog.isostech.com/incident management. You'll find a lot of information there. Nick, thank you so much for talking with me about this today. I learned a lot. I hope not to cause any incidents where work. This has been the best ITSM show by Appfire. You can find more episodes at hub.appfire.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.